I was born the runt of the litter, smaller and weaker than my brothers and sisters. While they wrestled for the best spot at Mom's belly, I was often shoved aside, left with the dregs. Life on the farm was a constant competition, and from day one, I was losing. Our pen was a chaotic world of mud, squeals, and the ever-present shadow of the farmer. He was a giant in denim, his hands large and calloused. To my siblings, he was the source of food, the bringer of slap. To me, he was a looming threat. I noticed things they didn't. The way his eyes would scan our pen, not with affection, but with a cold, calculating gaze. I saw how the older pigs, the ones who had been here for seasons, would disappear. One day they were grunting in the sun. The next, their space was empty. The others didn't seem to question it, but I did. A primal fear, cold and sharp, took root in my heart. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I didn't want to disappear. My first real lesson in hiding came from a mouse, a tiny, gray creature that darted along the edge of our trough. One day, the farm cat, a sleek ginger hunter, cornered it. The mouse froze, then vanished. It had squeezed itself into a crack in the wooden fence, so small I had even known it was there. The cat pawed and hissed, but the mouse was gone. That was it. That was the secret. To become unseen. I started practicing. My small size, once a disadvantage, became my greatest asset. I learned to flatten myself in the hay, to hold my breath until my lungs burned. I discovered that if I stayed perfectly still behind the water trough, the shadows would swallow me whole. My brothers would run around oinking and playing, completely oblivious to my silent observation. I became a ghost in my own home. The farm was full of hiding spots. If you knew where to look, under the loose floorboard of the shed, behind the stack of old tires, deep within the thorny blackberry bush at the edge of the pasture. Each new spot was a victory, a small rebellion against my fate. I memorized the farmer's routine. I knew the sound of his boots on the gravel path, the jingle of the keys to the feed shed, the low rumble of his truck starting in the morning. These sounds were my almanac, my early warning system. One crisp autumn morning, the air thick with the smell of damp earth, the farmer came into the pen with a different kind of energy. He wasn't carrying the slop bucket. In his hand was a rope. My heart hammered against my ribs. He walked slowly, his eyes scanning the group. My siblings, fat and content, barely stirred. His gaze passed over my brother, Bartholomew, the biggest and proudest of us all. The rope snaked out. Bartholomew let out a terrified squeal, a sound I had never heard from him before. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated terror. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I bolted. Not out in the open, but to my pre-planned escape route. I squeezed through a gap in the fence I'd been widening for weeks, a sliver of space behind a rusted water pump. The wood scraped my back, but I didn't care. I scrambled into the tall grass beyond the farm's edge and did untop running until the squeals faded behind me. I was free, but I was also alone. The world outside the farm was vast and terrifying. Every rustle of leaves was a predator, every shadow a threat. The first night, I huddled under the roots of a giant oak tree, shivering from cold and fear. Hunger gnawed at my belly, a deeper ache than I had ever known. The slop bucket, as much as I hated what it represented, had always been full. Here, there was nothing. My survival depended on the skills I had honed in the pen. Hiding was no longer a game. It was life and death. I learned to forage for acorns and wild mushrooms. My sensitive snout, my guide. I learned to tell the difference between the scent of a fox and the scent of a badger. I became a master of camouflage, rolling in mud and leaves to blend in with a forest floor. I could stand motionless for hours, a living statue, until danger passed. One day, while foraging near a stream, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. The baying of hounds. It was a hunting party! Panic seized me, but my training took over. I didn't run blindly. I scanned a hollow log, half submerged in the muddy bank of the stream. It was perfect. I plunged into the cold water. the shock taking my breath away, and wedged myself deep inside the log. The sounds grew closer, the splashing of dogs, the shouting of men. I could hear them right outside my hiding spot. A dog's wet nose snuffled at the entrance of the log. I held my breath, my entire body rigid. I prayed to whatever gods watch over pigs that the dog wouldn't find me. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, a man's voice called the dog away. I heard them move on, their sounds receding into the distance. I stayed in that log until darkness fell, not daring to move, my body trembling uncontrollably from the cold and the residual fear. That encounter changed me. I realized that just hiding wasn't enough. I needed to be smarter, to anticipate threats. I began to map the forest in my mind, not just the hiding spots, but the escape routes, the sources of food and water, the territories of other animals. I learned to use the terrain to my advantage, leading pursuers into dense thickets or across treacherous streams. Heures passé, y greu larger. My body lean and muscular from a life on the move. My tusks grew long and sharp. I was no longer the runt of the litter. I was a survivor, a wild boar forged in the crucible of fear and freedom. I became a legend in the forest, a phantom. Farmers would find their fences broken and their crops raided, but they would never see the culprit. Hunters would follow my tracks for days, only to have them vanish into thin air. They called me the Ghost Pig. One evening, as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the fields, I found myself drawn to a familiar scent on the wind. The scent of a pig's curiosity, a feeling I had long suppressed, got the better of me. I moved silently through the trees until I could see the farm. It looked smaller than I remembered. A new batch of piglets wrestled in the pen, oblivious and innocent. A different farmer, older and slower than the one I remembered, was throwing slop into the trough. I watched them, a strange mix of pity and detachment in my heart. They were living the only life they knew, a life of comfortable confinement, a life that ended abruptly and without warning. As I turned to leave, a movement caught my eye. A small piglet, much smaller than the rest, was not at the trough. It was hiding perfectly still, in the shadow of the barn door. Its eyes, wide with a familiar fear, were fixed on the farmer. In that moment, I saw myself. I saw the same spark of awareness, the same desperate will to live. I didn't make a sound. I didn't try to communicate. What could I say? That the world outside was hard and dangerous. That freedom was a constant struggle. No. That piglet would have to find its own way. Just as primera ad. But as I melted back into the shadows of the forest, a sense of hope bloomed in my chest. The instinct to survive, to hide, to fight, was not mine alone. The spirit of the ghost pig would live on. I was no longer just a survivor. I was a story, a whisper on the wind, a testament to the pig that learned to hide. And my story was far from over. Thanks for watching.